What's up, marker heads? It's Karen from Art by Karen E. Haley, and today I have a drawing that I did for Crazy Comic Lady of her 3 Rattata characters. So she asked me to do this drawing of her Rattata Ratty, who has blue eyes, and he's going to be in the lower part of the picture. And she wanted me to draw him bringing flowers to her other Rattata, whose name is Bitey, and that's the girl Rattata. However, she has fallen in love with Rusty, who is the Rattata that she is kissing, and he is a shiny Rattata, so you'll see me color him kind of a brown color. But anyway, so this is a really, kind of sad picture, and it was kind of a, I wanted it to have a really, pretty and cool and magical look to it, but also I wanted it to be kind of blues and kind of understated and sad looking at the same time, and it's kind of hard to play up the romance in a picture when it's also supposed to be a sad picture. But I really love the way this artwork turned out, and I hope that you enjoy watching me color it. So first I just colored in the sky. A lot of times that's what I start with, is just the sky, because you know, your lighting usually comes from the light sources in your sky, and so for me it helps if I have that that kind of done first. It helps me to establish what colors I'm going to use as my lighting and shading colors, and so that's kind of what I decided to do for this drawing. And I think that I've done kind of the same steps in this as I did in my night scene tutorial, so if you are interested in how I really did this, I used pretty much the same techniques as I did in this one, although I did use a more streaky kind of texture with the dark blues than I did in that one. However, the lighting tips and things like that are pretty much the same. And so yeah, if you really wanted to get a more in-depth kind of tutorial, you could go ahead and watch that. Here I am refilling markers. I always mean to cut that out, but then I forget to. So you get to see me putting ink in my markers, but you know, it only happens for like a second or two, so it's not a big deal. So here I am coloring all the really dark shading into this tree, and then when I was done, I thought that it looked just too green for the lighting that I used in the sky, and so I colored over it with my blue marker. And this is B26 that I colored over it with. And I think that it really brought the tree back into the background. I mean, it really helped it to fit with the rest of the picture, which made me happy. Because at first I was like, oh, it's just too green, it doesn't fit, and so thankfully I was able to kind of fix it. Now, this picture I actually did before I started using colored pencil as my line work in my backgrounds, and so it's different from the last couple pictures that I put up, and that's kind of it's kind of interesting to look and see how my art has changed between different drawings and things like that. And if I could, I probably would do this one with colored pencil if I had the chance to go back and do it again. However, I really like the way this one turned out, so at the same time I don't feel like it's that much of a loss that I did it before I started using that technique. I really like the way that the silhouetted Rattatas look, because they're not the main focus of the drawing, although I know that you're kind of looking at them right now. You'll see later on that the lower half of the picture is really where you're supposed to look, because he's the one that I want people to identify with, and so I wanted him to be more detailed, and I just wanted you to feel like he should have been the one that got the girl, you know? And so I really wanted to make him the main focus. And that's why I put in this kind of soft, warm light with the flowers that he picked to bring to Bitey. I wanted them to be warm, to kind of draw your eye towards him, because everything else has a cool lighting, and I felt like if he had a pink lighting around him, you would want to look at him and kind of focus on him in the drawing. And I also want to say that the way I did the grass was meant to draw your eye up to the other characters. So my idea with this is that I drew Ratty, this character right here, and then I drew these grass blades pointing at the other two characters. So the idea is that the viewer looks at Ratty first and then looks up to the other two. Although the moon and the brightness of the moon might be kind of competing, I think, with this whole idea of him being the main focus. So that's something that I learned, is that maybe in the future I won't put in such a high contrast light source when it's not near the main focus of the artwork. However, I do really like the way that the sky turned out in this picture. I feel like maybe it doesn't really work for this artwork as much as it should, but it's definitely one of my favorite skies that I've ever done, so so there's something to be said about what you put into your artwork, and even when you put a lot of work into something and make it look really good, sometimes it can wind up kind of not working in your favor in the end. So it's one of those things that you learn from how to compose your artwork and how to put it all together. It's kind of a puzzle to do your composition and try and think of how to put it all together in a way that fits without sort of fighting for attention from the viewer itself. So there's a little tangent there. Right now what I'm doing is kind of coloring in the grass and trying to put a glow in from these little flowers. And I don't think that there's a real flower that does this. I base these off of Lily of the Valley, but they don't glow. But what I wanted them to do was look like little lanterns, and I just wanted them to look really pretty, but also they're kind of drooping down and they look a little bit sad at the same time, just to kind of emphasize that Ratty is really sad that Bitey has chosen Rusty over him, and that he's just really disappointed and kind of jilted, I guess. And so that's sort of the idea there with the way that the flowers were done. I apologize if this is really random sounding, this whole commentary. I'm just trying to think of stuff to talk about while I'm watching the video. So right now I'm just finishing up coloring the grass, and like I've said in the past, BG72 is one of my most used colors. This is that same color that I'm using right now, and I really like it because it's a light color, but not so light that you can't make it darker with layering. There are a couple of Copics that I have that you just can't really get much range out of, but this is one of those markers that you can get loads of range out of, so I highly recommend that you get BG72 and also BG78. So that's Ice Ocean BG72 and Bronze BG78. Those two just are so versatile and useful, and I love to use them, especially in night scenes. And if you're looking for some markers to get that I like to use, those are two that I would definitely recommend. Of course right now, because Rattata's a purple, I'm coloring Ratty, and then I leave that coat to dry while I move on to another part of the picture, but I'm not done coloring Ratty. a lot of people will say, oh, you're so random, you leave areas and then you come back to them. But the reason I do that is because I go to work on another area while I'm letting the color dry. And so that's kind of why I left him to sit while I was working on other areas. What I'm doing right now is just adding in a lot of dark contrast with the grass, because I thought, well, I need to frame this with some dark colors, and then when I was done I felt like there was too much contrast there and that it was distracting, and so I kind of colored over it again with some blues just to bring that color from the upper half of the picture down into the bottom half, just to kind of make it all a little more coherent and kind of bring it all back together, because it looks almost, at this point it looked almost like two different drawings, because one half was just a different color of lighting than the other and a different color of shading, and so I felt that I needed to bring some blues back down into this part because it was just way too green, just like the tree earlier. And so I'm going to just do the same thing on this side. And by now I could have brought in all of the shading on Ratty, but I wanted to just finish this up while the steps that I took on the other side were fresh in my mind. And so I'm just going to leave him for a little bit more. And I think that one of the last things I colored was the ground, because I wasn't really sure how I was going to do that, and I needed to look up some references before I moved on to the ground underneath his paws there. And now I'm finally going to come back and add in the lighting and the shading. So what I did was I blended out those harsh edges on his ear and face with, I think it was RV02, because it's really visually interesting if you bring a really bright color right at the edge of the shadow. I think that it makes the lighting look a lot warmer and a lot brighter. And so that's just another tip, is that edging your shading with a bright color right before it dips into the really dark colors, it can really emphasize the difference between shadow and light. I'm not sure how to explain it. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that sort of thing, you should look up Sluggy. She's a channel on YouTube that does digital art, but she's really talented and she has really good tips and really good pointers that after watching her videos I put a few of her tips into practice in my own artwork, even though I use a different medium. And so I think that everyone should watch her videos. She's just really good and really helpful. Anyway, so here I am pushing in the last few blues, and then that's pretty much it. Thanks you guys so much for watching. I hope that you subscribe and watch more videos of mine and leave a comment and any other feedback. Anyway, thanks!